Hello and what is up YouTube? My name is G3 Iron and today we are going to be chatting about level boosting to maps, a potential game mechanic that would allow players to boost their character or purchase a character boost directly from, say, level 1 all the way up to level 70. This is a suggestion that has been made several times throughout the Path of Exile history and game development cycle. It's something that comes up every couple of months. It frankly comes up pretty much every league. There's a discussion where typically around mid-league or so, players wonder, hey, why is it that we have to level through all 10 story acts again and again and again? We've played through the game multiple times. We've made it to maps multiple times. Maybe somebody's interested in playing or building a particular type of character, and they just want to jump into it straight at the build-enabled stage at maps rather than have to go through the hassle of leveling through the 10-act story campaign. So the question often comes up, hey, Grinding Gear Games, why don't you let us do this? So today we're going to be chatting about that specific topic. If you are new to the channel, welcome. You can go ahead and like, subscribe, and ding the bell to be notified about more discussions just like this one. If at any point in time you would like to jump ahead or revisit any of the various discussion points that we have set out today for today's discussion, there are timestamps placed above my entirely smooth bald head, and those, of course, are hot linked down for you down below in the video description. So first off, a couple of disclaimers. The first disclaimer is that we are not discussing power leveling or speed leveling, i.e. simply progressing faster through the 10-act story campaign of Path of Exile. That's not what we're talking about today. We've got other videos that feature how to level faster, how to progress faster, how to improve your leveling time. Today we're focused solely on the possible account mechanic to have a character instantly generated post Act 10 Kitava kill, which would roughly be level 70-ish. Secondly, we are today presenting two sides of the discussion for your interaction and enjoyment. So any opinions expressed are solely those of me, G3 Iron, and are not representative, associated, or on any way, shape, or form on behalf of any other person or organization on the entirety of planet Earth. Okay, so that being said, what are some reasons for level boosts? What are some reasons that people give from a player's perspective? What would the benefits of having a level boost be? Well, right away, player retention. This is something that comes up, again, around mid-league, around the middle of leagues, as some players begin to look for alternative places to go play games or alternative games to interact with. Maybe they're completing various challenges or completing various goals that they've had for the league, and so they just don't feel like there's that much left to offer them in a particular league cycle. So one reason that players cite is player retention. Some players choose to stop playing Path of Exile altogether when they have had their fun with a particular character. And rather than level an entire new character through the story mode, they would simply rather not play Path of Exile at all, because there is something of an aversion to leveling a new character through that story mode. For many players, it's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it's not a moral thing in any way, shape, or form, but it's simply a player's motivation thing and a player personality thing that some players are going to be motivated to constantly revisit and go back and enjoy something that they've already experienced, akin to rewatching a television show or a movie. Other players are going to say, hey, I've already played through that once, I don't want to go through it again. So some personalities and some player types and motivations are more motivated to revisit content than others. And for some, they'll rather choose to stop playing PoE altogether. So one reason for a level boost could be that it would actually have somewhat of a positive effect on the player base. A second reason is experiencing the end game. So some players never experience the end game of Path of Exile because they burn out on the game while playing a character from level 1 to 90, or really, realistically, whatever number it is, right? Generally speaking, it's usually between level 70 to level 80 that players will actually re-roll a character if they make it past, I think it's Act 6. But those numbers are from a long time ago. That's from when Fall of Oriath first came out and we first were given the 10-act story campaign. That being said, players do burn out as they are progressing through the story, and this could potentially help with that. Some players who simply want to experience mapping, who simply want to experience progressing and filling out their atlas, some players who might want to fight against the Shaper or who have never encountered even red maps or maybe even yellow maps. Some players who, due to time constraints, aren't able to dump the same amount of time into Path of Exile as other players, want to experience the end game of Path of Exile because maybe they haven't ever, or there are particular goals in mind that they haven't gotten to yet. Maybe they've experienced some of the end game, but they haven't min-maxed it. Maybe they've never pushed a character past level 80. Maybe they've never pushed a character past level 85. Maybe they've never pushed a character past, let's say, red maps, yellow maps, etc. Maybe there's a particular boss that they want to take down. Maybe there's a particular build that really doesn't get started until level 70, and when they swapped over to it, from playing one particular experience for, let's say, 12 hours while they're leveling to all of a sudden this new experience, maybe they didn't like it. Now they're demotivated because they really don't actually want to play this new thing that they just leveled up an entire character for. So experiencing the end game is actually one very valid reason from a player's perspective why an account boost or a character boost on your account would be a great thing. Thirdly, some people just want to skip ahead to join other friends who are already at end game status. So some players want to play socially, and some players only want to play in party play. So without perfectly overlapping play schedules between you and your guildmates or your Discord friends, etc., it can be tough to be at similar stages of character progression. This is true in my own life. I've got several different players in our guild, as well as face-to-face friends that I've known for years that I play Path of Exile with, and we've all got different work schedules. We've all got different schedules with our kids. Those of us that do have kids, we've all got different sleep schedules, again, relating back to our family schedules, our work schedules, our time zone differences, the international nature of the internet, allowing people who sometimes are on one side of the globe to play with other people who are on the other side of the globe. That's great. That's really cool. That's some of the powerful community aspects and communal aspects of the internet and of a game like Path of Exile. So having an ability to simply boost a character to maps would say, you know what, maybe one of us got to play a whole bunch and level through the story and got to experience a bunch of content and had some drops and had a great time. But another person simply had to work or was on a different play schedule or hasn't played in a week or two. And rather than say, hey, let's both go level up a new character, you could say with an account boost, hey, let's both go jump into maps and get my level 70 character geared out, and then go from there. We can play together. This is especially true for players that play support. So I'm waving because I occasionally play support. Typically, usually once a league when I'm playing softcore, I'll build a support character that will run either auras or curses for other players. And that can be really, really difficult to do, to play a support character or a party play based character that's focused on helping other players if you don't get to set up a play session with a dedicated group of players to help carry you through and level through the 10-act story. So having a character boost to level 70 would say, hey, look, I'm useful here right away as a party play based character that is able to now join in on the mapping fun. Fourthly, some players want to have enjoyment of a full build, and a full build sometimes doesn't come online until endgame. Some builds are enabled by uniques or jewels or even ascendancies, right? Or maybe passives, like a certain number of passive points for a certain number of jewel slots or a certain number of keystones that you need, like, hey, support players again. These builds can sometimes be clunky or unfun to play prior to hitting a particular level threshold or a particular stage, right? A lot of the time, build guides that we will recommend right here on the guide on our channel, if it's a guide that we will recommend, a lot of the time it will have included in it both an end game version of the build as well as a detailed walkthrough on how to level the build, because most often end game content and end game builds in Path of Exile look very, very different from a build at, let's say, unascended level 10, unascended level 20, unascended level 30, ascended level 40, and so on and so forth. That builds are shaped and characters are shaped by the various passives as well as items as well as other sorts of choices that you can make on your character. So it can be very, very boring to be playing character A when your goal is to play character D, and you know that you're going to have to transition into character B and C before you can get to D. You don't really want to play A, B, or C. You want to play D. Right now, with no level boost, you essentially have to play A, B, and C in order to get to D for some specific builds. All right, the opposing perspective is from GGG's side of things or from a game development design perspective. So these would be reasons to not have a level boost or reasons against having a level boost mechanic available in the game. The first is player retention. Ironically enough, this is something that players argue about and community members argue about, whether or not player retention would actually benefit from having account boosts or whether or not it would actually be harmed from having account boosts. So from this side of things, an argument against having a level boost on your account is that players will actually leave the game faster due to having map burnout, unclear endgame goals. It could be that they simply don't know what they're doing. It could be that the game is very, very different in the sense that you are progressing through pretty much one storyline and then a bunch of Masters missions as you are interacting with the Atlas in the end game of Path of Exile. Whereas when you're leveling through the story, it feels a lot more linear in the progression that you experience through Acts 1 through 10. You feel as though there's something building. I know for many of you out there who are veterans like myself that have played through Path of Exile just dozens of times, you're not going to say that you feel like you're progressing through something. But for many newer players, as they're progressing through the campaign and through the story, there is a sense and a feeling of wonder, of progress, of excitement, of development, of exploration. That's all there as you are exploring the various places that you go to throughout the 10-act story and fulfill the various quests that are in front of you. Endgame, after you kill Kitava, there's Zana that's like, hey, want to help me with my crazy dad that might also be buddies with the most powerful, creepy entity that we know of? Do you want to do that? And so there's really only this one quest to go on. And so for players that struggle maybe with direction or with open world concepts or with a choose your own adventure sort of palette, which is the Atlas, players might actually leave the game faster due to all of those factors. And so a level boost or an account boost could actually hurt player retention numbers. The implementation of an account boost or a level boost for a character is also a massive, massive problem from GGG's perspective. So if you're making a level boost option available, it's going to raise all kinds of questions, and I've just got a few of them here that I've already thought of. I'm sure some of you can come up with more questions about GGG's business model, their motivations, as well as their philosophy as a company. So let's say, for instance, that you would implement this particular character boost through the purchase of a supporter pack, right? If you buy the Legion or the 3.8, right, let's say you buy the next supporter pack for the next expansion and for the next league that comes out, which will be 3.8. Say you buy that and you get one character level boost, right, associated with the supporter pack. A whole slew of the community, okay, is then going to say, Path of Exile just became pay to win. It is now completely over the top, fully pay to win. Because if you spend money on a supporter pack, you can simply rush a character to maps. For those of you that are maybe into racing and the racing scene in Path of Exile, you might say, yeah, how would you implement that? Because players race in order to get to level 100. So does this mean that anybody who wanted to enter a race would have to buy a supporter pack? Okay, well, no, that's a great point. So maybe what we'll do is we'll restrict it. We'll say that you can unlock a second character that boosts directly to maps as soon as you kill Act 10 Kitava for the first time on your first character. Okay, that's fine. So then what about all the players who don't want to purchase that? It's still pay to win, right? That's just an aspect to this. What about GGG's motivations in doing this regarding content? Right now, a lot of us really enjoy Path of Exile because every couple of months there is a whole massive slew of content that comes out for us to interact with on a regularly scheduled basis, where there's essentially 4 leagues every single year, and sometimes they're more hit, sometimes they're more miss, but we can essentially set our watches and our clocks by a 4-month publication schedule of new content. Well, if things change and people buy enough of these particular things, or the business model changes enough such that now account boosts are now a major factor in the income for the company, all of a sudden that changes the demands for content. It changes the way how players interact with the company in terms of a business model. GGG still benefits a lot from the sales that go on being called supporter packs, because we're supporting GGG. Yes, we can say that GGG is now in business with Tencent. It's a bigger company, much bigger company than where it was as a small indie title when it was first started. But nonetheless, there's just over 100 people that are working for Grinding Gear Games, and every single dollar that you and I spend on Path of Exile goes towards paying those people's expenses as well as their salaries to develop and the resources that are required to make Path of Exile as a game. So, if that changes and account boosts all of a sudden are seen as a relatively decent chunk of the money and the income that's coming into GGG, do they spend so much time making new content? Do they swap over and just start thinking about how they can acquire more players rather than keeping players for longer by developing deeper and deeper content? Maybe they start saying, we just need to go out and grab a bunch of new players who are then going to purchase this account boost from us. There's all kinds of ethical and philosophical and business model motivational questions that come in. Would level boosts be free? If they're free, how many do you get per account? Let's say that they're locked out beyond that first character for obvious reasons for racing. How many do you get per account? Is it simply that you can purchase an account or upload or make a new account and then you automatically get one? Do you need to hit a certain level threshold? What about botters? Like, we can't have a conversation about account management and account features without discussing botters when it comes to Path of Exile. It's just a harsh reality. How is it that botters are going to take advantage of this? And botters are simply going to then spam and fill servers with a bunch of level 70 characters that are running around and bot farming. Would these become associated with supporter packs, or would they be standalone purchases, right? There's already a conflict of interest here in terms of how GGG is going to design new content, but also in how GGG is going to market various MTX. Right now, MTX is a massive portion of Grinding Gear Games' income in terms of their various business models that are available, right? Whether that's supporter packs or simply buying in-game boxes or straight up purchasing effects for your character. And purchasing an account boost for your character would be a completely new segment, right, in that particular model, right? Right now you can buy a supporter pack. Hey, that buys you a bunch of points that you can spend on whatever it is that you want, plus it gives you guaranteed MTX. Well, now let's say, for instance, that you spent the money, or whether it's a standalone purchase or a supporter pack, you spent the money to have an account boosted character. What about people who are now getting closer to the max level of, or to the max number of characters on their account? Does this mean that GGG is now pushing people to make multiple accounts in order to make multiple purchases? Essentially a predatory behavior to draw more money out of people from addictive properties, from trying to find a threshold of min-maxing. How many accounts should I manage and how many of these should I buy in order to have multiple different characters at the right level? It's very, very tricky. I hope that what I've done here as I'm expressing this particular part of the implementation of a particular mechanic for boosting characters is simply to lay it out there as a point of discussion for us as a community to say, hey, let's at least appreciate that this is tricky in the implementation. I'm sure many of you have got suggestions about how this would be implemented, and I'd love to hear what those suggestions are down below in the comments and interact with those. But we can at least all agree that it would be tricky, and there would be definitely some fences to watch out for, and some potential pitfalls to watch out for as they would potentially implement this, as they, being GGG, could potentially implement this at some point. Also, there's the devaluing of content. This is another reason to not implement level boosts for a particular account or for a particular character. And simply put, GGG has spent over a decade developing the content, gameplay, and story of Path of Exile in the story campaign that's found in Acts 1 through 10. So if a player simply says, you know what, I just want to skip that. I don't even care. I don't care about Act 6. I don't care about Act 3. I don't want to know about the bandits in Act 2. I don't care. You and I can say that because we're players, and there's things that we want to choose to interact with, and there's other things that we want to choose not to interact with. But at the same time, this is the creation of a company and of a team of people that have put in their time and their resources into creating and making this exact particular game. And so doing something that would devalue that is a massive, massive hit to the design team. Anything that allows the players to skip Not access faster or process faster or progress faster, but genuinely truly skip content in that story that has been in development for over a decade, whether that's gameplay mechanics, whether that's story narrative, whether that's design and UI. It doesn't matter. People have put in time into building this. Now, you might say that's the sunk cost fallacy. Just because they've made something doesn't mean everybody has to experience it. That's true, but it's their product, right? Now, if enough of us all said we don't want to experience this product, I'm sure GGG would say, okay, great, we're going to remove that. I.e., we've seen them do that quite often with leagues that go poorly received, or with mechanics that are poorly received or are too convoluted. Those things don't find their way into the core game of Path of Exile if enough people speak out. Those things get withdrawn, retracted, reworked on, and then potentially re-released like Bestiary, or they're simply gone with no plans at the moment for future implementation, i.e. synthesis, right? So anything that allows players to skip content that has been worked on hard by the design team really is a hit for that entire design cycle. And so while we might say it's the sunk cost fallacy, it's really tough to approach the sunk cost fallacy when we're coming to people's lives and to people's work here that they're really, really, really proud of and that they're excited about, that they've put their time, their effort, their energy, their very being into creating. So yes, we can say, you know what, I really don't want to have to run through the bandits, and I think it's terrible design, and I think it's poor implementation, and I think we shouldn't have to do it as players each and every time. That's fine. That's a fine critique to say that. That being said, somebody designed that at GGG, or somebody's, a group of people designed that, and as a team, GGG has said, this is a big enough component to our game that we need this, and everybody's got to go through it as they're progressing. So you've got to make a compelling enough argument about a piece of content that says this content, although it was useful and purposeful and there were resources put into it, this piece of content is no longer useful for players on every single character. That's at least from GGG's perspective, right, in terms of the design of the various pieces of content that have come out that people have really dumped a lot of time and effort into creating. A lot of us just meme and say, oh, there's story in PoE, or, oh, Iron, there's a narrative in PoE and there's lore. Like, yeah, there is lore in PoE. There is an aesthetic to PoE. There is a ton of work that goes on behind the scenes to changing the details of PoE. I was just leveling a character a couple of weeks ago and noticed some details in Act 7 that I had never noticed before, just as I was running along. Like, there's so much beauty and in-depth effort that has been put into the content that players experience. If we truly want something like this that allows us to skip content to come into play, if we want something like that, then we've got to be able to justify why this content that people have put so much time and so much effort into should be skipped and should be potentially passed by the wayside. Lastly, PoE right now cultivates a solo player experience. I don't mean Han Solo here. This isn't a Star Wars reference. This is just solo as in single player experience. So right now, PoE has primarily been designed for an audience that will only play based on their friends if they've got friends to play with, right? And that is a very, very small chunk of players, right, that play Path of Exile only when their friends are on. The vast majority of the player base of Path of Exile are players who are playing Path of Exile on their own. They boot it up whenever it is that they want to. They play for however long they want to, and then they'll come back whenever they want to. It is not designed as a multiplayer experience. Yes, Path of Exile is an online game. Yes, it is a game that can be played in party play. Yes, it is a game that can be played with other players. However, it is primarily designed and primarily enjoyed by the vast majority of the player base as a solo experience. So if GGG all of a sudden were to change things and allow for a character boost simply because there are players who want this for social reasons to be boosted up to play with their friends, that changes their design philosophy significantly. And so designing for an audience that will only play based on their friends really is a losing battle in this genre, and one that PoE has not taken on as of yet. They've said, we want to design this game more and more for solo experiences, and they've come out with various supporting options for solo play. The biggest one most recently being support for servers that are solo self-found servers, which several years ago as a player community, we thought that would never happen. We thought there would never be dedicated servers for that. And so that's something that PoE and that Grinding Gear Games has made a point to say, we are continuing to cultivate a solo player experience that can then be enjoyed in a multiplayer environment if you'd like it to, but primarily that PoE is solo player experienced. Again, some nuance there. I'm not saying that PoE is that, or that the majority of players are solo self-found, but rather that players play on their own. They're not dependent on their friends to be in a lobby with them, or to be in a team environment to be with them, or to be in the same instance with them. That's what I mean by cultivating a solo experience. So that was my thoughts in presenting whether or not there would be benefits to having an account-based level boost, or if there would be maybe some reasons not to have an account-based level boost. So that's what I've come up with in terms of reasons for or against. But what do you think? Should GGG enable character level boosts? If so, why do you think so? Or maybe should GGG continue to encourage, or maybe some of you would say force, players to play through the entire campaign story on every single character? If you think that should be the policy as it is now and maintained, maybe let us know down below in the comments exactly why you think that is the case. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to enjoying and discussing with all of you down below in the comments. Thanks so much once again for watching, and I hope today is the day a Mirror of Calandra drops for you. Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.